Hi, welcome to Fashion with Passport. Today we have a Sofia Matvveva and we have some amazing pieces that you can wait to see it. She is with us today and I'm very excited to show you what is coming soon. Thank you for being part of this episode.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me.
It's such an honor to having you today.
Well, likewise. It's very nice to be here.
I would like to know, when you came from Ukraine?
I went from Ukraine 4 years ago in the beginning of war in Ukraine. And I had my business for 8 years back there. And it's my first full year of making designs here in US.
How do you start designer? What motivated you before you came to this country? Like how young you were when you made that important decision?
Yeah, thank you, Glenkora. It's actually very interesting because just as many other girls and boys, I was dreaming of becoming a designer, a fashion designer, and like being in kindergarten, I was already drawing all of this, little collections. So for everyone who I knew, it was really like a childhood dream. Was like when I was 10, I was watching every Sunday the fashion shows on the TV while my parents were sleeping. So it was very, very interesting. But of course, when you grow up, things are much harder. Like they appear to be realistic rather than just dreams. And when I was finishing the high school, I was really thinking that there is only one thing that I want to do in life. It's be a fashion designer. And my sister was the one who actually supported me through it and said that, yes, just go for it. And interestingly, right now, when I'm here in US, she is my supporter. She continues to be there for me at every fashion show that I have, every backstage, every fashion photo shoot that I have. She's there for me. But the thing is that after I finished the fashion design school, it took me another 5 years to actually go and start it. And in 2014, I created the first, this is why we have a black coat today. I created the first black coat for myself. I was in a very, very, let's say, emotionally dark place at that point, and I wanted to create something that would be an armor for myself. And it was September, it was super cold at that time in Ukraine, and I created the first black coat. And before becoming a designer, I had my experience working for the international advertising agency. And most of people at that time were on Facebook. So people did see that I was doing black coats. And that was the time when dark fashion was just rising and all the Berlin and everything was just super high on demand. And people saw that, and all of my ex-colleagues at the, advertising agency became my new customers at my own business. And I was sewing like crazy. So that's how I started it. And it was 2014 in Kiev, after we had our first revolution. And that was the time when people were saying, this is not the time to start the business. But when you have your own knowledge and when you know how to do the patterns and how to, and your audience, people who come to you and what they want, and you can adjust the pattern, you can do it made to measure. And they start wearing, and in 2014, Facebook was such a huge platform, even without paying advertisements. So they would just show that they wear my coats, and more people would get into it. So that's how it started. And I think that, that's throughout the years, that's still my main love about fashion, is the coats and the armor that you can create for someone or for yourself, was just making a right coat.
How huge is your community for fashion designers in Ukraine?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Ukraine, okay, so when Ukraine became independent a little more than 30 years ago, Ukraine started developing as an independent, platform for creative people who would be cherished and on demand inside of the country. So whatever was like Ukraine-based was starting to be something of an interest. However, we still had a lot of, influence from Russia, a lot of influence from the United States, a lot of influence from everywhere. And we were not really concentrated on who we have inside of the country. However, when I started, so in 2014, after we had that first revolution, we started being, understanding that we are the nation inside of Ukraine, that Ukrainians are the main, the main population, and we love our people and our designs and our culture. People started looking even more into who were there, and they were starting much more of new businesses that were helping Ukrainians to develop. So at that point in 2014 and 2015 and 2016, multiple festivals, events, showcasing designers, artists were just popping up every year, like several events, and people were coming like crazy. They were like absorbing everything that they could see, and they were buying, and the thing is that when you're a designer, you need to have your customers to sell to, because if you just do it and no one wears it, like there is no interest in it. But in the society, there was such a huge rise that people were welcoming designers, and more new businesses were rising up, So young designers were doing some things and were selling them, and people were knowing their names now. So it was like the wave of new people, new names coming, to the surface. And that's where I came. And the thing is that prior to that, you had to be super established. You had to have investments. You had to have someone really strong standing behind you, have a strong team and have a lot of people to support you. But in 2014, you just had to be you, have a dream, and go for it. That's where it started. And the thing is that, the more Ukraine changes, and the more people actually travel, the more they go to different countries, see different experiences, the more rich the culture is, and the more people consume it, the more interesting it is.
I feel very inspired by your history, because it's just, I wish I had the right words to explain how your story makes me feel right now. But I think that, there is a powerful message behind all of that. And just talking about the power of the background that you have behind yourself is, what is your next step in this country? How do you feel now that you're here, that you have a couple of years, 1 year just starting the design, and the community? How do you feel welcome in the fashion industry here in the United States? All of these little details matters a lot.
Yes, absolutely. So because out of 4 years that I have spent here already, it was only 1 year when I was from January 2025 till December 2025, I was doing these fashion. And I've done 9 fashion shows in this year. And I've done 5 collections already, like men's, women's, 2 collections presented at DC Fashion Week. I've done for Impaired Vision community in Alexandria. I've done specifically for Ukrainian community and the charity. I've done so many different things that I wasn't aware that I was capable, that I was capable of doing. And the thing is that if back in Ukraine I was, concentrated on kind of marketing, knowing how to sell it and all that stuff, here it's like you just start from the very beginning and you try things and you say yes to invitations. You called me for sure, I'm coming. I don't know what it's about, but I'm coming. That's how I was invited to so many things and places and events. and I wasn't quite sure how to do that or where to go, or do I even have enough time to get ready for it. But I was saying yes, and it was happening. And the thing is that the more I was doing it this year, the more I was meeting new and new people. However, I figured out that the base of the DC fashion and the area, DMV area, is pretty much same people, and the more you work with them, the more you know them.
No, it's true what you say, because like you say, the way they invite you is how you connect with people.
Yes.
And that's why we have this platform, which is Fashion with Passport. Is a platform, but it's the passport for fashion. I noticed also reaching out for designers that the community, the fashion designers in DC, Maryland, and DMV is a small.
Yes.
It's a small community. So with that said, this is a huge reason to get together, to find the right support, because if we support each other, we grow. And not necessarily, necessarily it could be, we can create new fashion designers,
Absolutely.
Because you pattern, I design, we have more designers, and we can teach new generations. I know there is a school, fashion designer school in Virginia. 100% there is a lot of projects that these kids are relying on us. So we have the responsibility to use our role and make sure that the community grows.
I think that is a very beautiful idea that you said. It's just that you can have your knowledge, but unless you share it, the knowledge doesn't grow, doesn't
and you
expand.
just leave it over there. So,
Yeah.
for example, when I see the piece, you see the armors, you create an armor.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think like designers in general, we create an armor.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful message. Like, thank you so much for believing this. Thank you so much for say yes, because we need to say yes often. If we don't say yes, we're not open to new beginnings. We don't know what is going to happen in the end, but the most important part is always try. And I appreciate you a lot for being here.
Thank you.
I think this is one of the best conversations I have in my entire life.
That is so true. Thank you so much. That is so heartwarming. I need to tell you that very interestingly, I opened to myself the DC Fashion Week and the people who actually do it here. Most of them are, politically correct, Afro-Americans who, because DC is the black city, and what I figured out, it's if they accept you, you're accepted. And the thing is that most of my models right now are really like black people, amazing, beautiful, educated. And I feel like, this is very different community that I got into from coming from Ukraine, where, Afro-Americans are so unusual. Wow, this is so cool to have someone with darker skin. But here, it's like the main supporters that I have got throughout these months. And I got, several photo shoots, like here in Arlington, where I live, and in Baltimore. And the creative community of the girls, the most amazing girls, and the most amazing gentlemen, who actually, if you learn a little more about them, one of my models work in White House. Another model of mine is a gynecologist. Another model of mine is like in the local county, department. And it's like the people who are super talented, super educated, very intelligent, and so supportive, because when you show your true identity and who you are, they accept you for who you are, and they're so ready to support you. It's amazing, This is where it's so hard. For me, it was so hard when coming here to feel like I can be accepted for who I am, for how I communicate, for how I work. And I figured out that community of, like, let's say, fashion community in DC is very close to my heart and how I see people, how I communicate, how open I am, and they are the same. I just didn't know that, that it's so easy, like, to be accepted. And it was. So that's why, like, finishing this super, super busy year, I'm feeling that I know so much more about this country and about this area after having done so many shows than I did before. And it feels so good.
It is. And one of the amazing things about this country is diversity.
Yeah.
This country supports diversity. And this is something that when I came here, I didn't know what I'm going to experience. But when I came here, I say, wow, I don't want to move from here because it's multicultural.
Yeah.
And there is many ways that you can grow in education, in business,
Yeah.
So there is so much in this country. Yeah.
I previously thought that, that New York is like very much comfortable for the fashion designer or any creatives. But it appeared to be that, DC in the area is very welcoming. When you just, when you come as any other, in any other country, when you are creative, there are so many challenges, but you just go right through them, and when you make connections, those connections do stay because people do care about your personality and how you deal with them rather than, like how much money you have or how much do you pay for that. It's very, very, it's very much same like it is back home. So, this is why it feels so good now here.
How do you find inspiration when you decide to create a collection?
And I do patterns, so many things change when I do patterns with my hands.
So just let's say that I call you because I have a project coming in 3 months, and I say, I have this proposal. We have to create a collection of 10 pieces. Do you have your ideas ready, or sometimes you feel your ideas just coming naturally, and how is the process generally?
Well, I do like to keep my sketches, that's first, because there are always so many ideas and you want to keep them. And when someone is from the side, you always want to look, is it all about you? Or is it all about, is it about something else or about some idea? So I do go back to my sketches, but I do listen to who's involved in this collection.
How do you see that the fashion industry is been changing? Because we know the fashion industry changes fast based on trends or based on climate change, based on many things, but in your eyes, how do you see fashion change?
First of all, I think people will buy less. Therefore, you have to make something really good for them so that they would buy it and they know that it's the investment worth it. Because buying less means buying better. Also, I think that it's very good to go in sustainability, to either get fabrics that are made in a proper good way, maybe from other countries, maybe somewhere where it's more organic, or even reuse for example, doing the whole new leather piece doesn't mean that you go and buy a lot of leather. You can go to the thrift store and buy several leather jackets, right? And you can make a new piece reusing the old pieces.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you do your samples? Talking about fashion and recycling, how do you do? Because sometimes when you have enough time, you create the sample, the idea before create this code. How do you do that process?
Normally, I would take fabrics like linen or like rough cotton to make the form. That's first. However, because I love leather, that's what I found very good for me, which works very good in this area. New leather is so high cost. It's too high of a cost. But people do bring to the thrift stores. They're all closets made of very nice leather, for example. So that's where when I'm preparing for the new collection and I need something like that, I just go and buy 10 leather jackets in the local thrift store. And I, get them undone and I see if that's a good thing to use or if I can use it for the mock-up. But I definitely implement that in my design process.
Thank you for being here in this interview. And welcome to the United States. I'm so happy you are doing what you love the most. And I can tell you that I'm in love with your design, especially this amazing piece that you've been at today, talking about your armor.
Yeah, thank you, Glenkora. I really appreciate you inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
This was another edition of Fashion with Passport. I see you in the next episode.
Fashion with Passport by Glenkora Comte. Strut the globe where the ball belongs.